Michael Kitces, how are you?
I'm doing well, Carl. How are you?
Things are fantastic. I'm just pulling up some notes here because I took a bunch of notes because
Did
this
did
is going
Chat
to be.
did ChatGPT help you with said notes?
Are we allowed to admit this anymore? Because yeah, I actually loaded a whole bunch of our transcripts into ChatGPT
Okay,
and said, I want to talk with Michael about something. Give me some ideas, and it gave me eight really great ideas.
very
Eight,
cool.
six really good ideas.
Okay.
Six really good ideas.
So what would
But
you like to talk about today then?
I want
Which one do you most appreciate that the artificial intelligence will take us to today?
it's one that what I normally do, and I use an LLM, an AI tool every day now, probably for a couple hours a day, actually, in all my processes. And what I normally do is give it my own context. And of course, we all know that prompt engineering is the key here. So I said to it, like, look, I think it'd be really fun for Michael and I to have a conversation about complexity and simplicity.
Okay.
And I even mentioned to it that years ago, and I don't know if you remember this, but years ago we presented together, as I recall, it was in St. Louis.
Okay.
And
Oh yeah.
we mixed our PowerPoint slides. So like we like you had a slide, then I had a slide.
Well, I don't remember that part. That must have been very jarring for the
Yeah,
audience.
yeah.
So
I want you all to imagine this. You're sitting in a room with, let's say you're sitting in a room with a couple hundred advisors, and there's two big screens up there. And Michael and I are on the stage together, and this every other slide is mine,
it's like
and the alternating.
white minimalist, bright blue,
Yeah, yeah. So
going back and forth.
there would be like 17 bullet points,
Yeah.
and then some graphs and charts, and then it would go
Just hit
to
the
a.
little auto. You just like type all the things you want. You press the little auto fit thing in the lower left corner of the PowerPoint, and it just crams the text down to the size that's necessary to fit on the slide.
Perfect. And
Beautiful.
then the next slide would come up, and it would be a hand-drawn sketch. So these things are both really, really valuable, right? Like they're fun to like compare and contrast, but they're both really valuable. And I'm curious because I know how much you love uh, the details and the facts and the figures. But how often do you see that become a challenge for advisors? Of like, I sometimes call it a place to hide sometimes, like place to hide from doing like some marketing or a place to hide from a conversation, but that's not really what I even mean. Like how how do we balance sort of the technical accuracy with making sure our clients understand what we're saying?
Well, look, I don't know if I have any magic answers here. I can say like my approach to this has evolved. Like just as I reflect over the years. So early on, like as I've said in some other of our episodes, I think like there's a part of me that's just wired as a debater. It would have been really interesting if I had ended out in law school. I probably would have been a litigator. Uh, so there was a stage for me. I mean, a stage like many years where, and I can only kind of say this with the lens of hindsight that like delivering a financial plan amounted to I've done the analysis. I've got the recommendation. Like you told me what you wanted. I've done the analysis. I've got the recommendations about how to get you there. And my job in the financial plan is to deliver the information to prove my point.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like you need to save $300 a month and do a Roth conversion next year, and that will set you on a better track for retirement. And now I need to bring the charts and analysis to prove that $300 a month is the right amount to save, and the Roth conversion next year is appropriate. And it should be $72,183 because, of course, I calculated it to the dollar. So, right. And then, like, I've got to bring numbers and charts and supporting data to make the point, to prove the point. And so plans were fairly long. There was a lot of stuff to go through to kind of illustrate and prove the points that I was trying to make so that
Mm,
they would take the recommendations that I was giving. And I think at the most fundamental level, the shift for me, and honestly, I don't know how much of this is a change in planning philosophy and approach, a change in my delivery style, or the reality that, again, at least like with the lens of hindsight, it really does feel different in how I can deliver recommendations now than in the past. In the past, it felt like I've got recommendations to deliver, and I have to go through the details of the plan because I need to prove my case. Now it feels like I can go into a meeting and say, I might even bring the plan these days. We're probably more likely to pull it up on a screen collaboratively. But, I've done the analysis. If it was a few years ago, I'll like plop that plan on the desk, at least for an in-person meeting. It's like I've done the analysis. It hits the table with a thud and it's got volume because it's got density. There's a lot of pages in that thing. Like
right.
I've done the analysis. If you would like, I'm happy to go through as much of this as you want
Love it.
because I'm totally ready to like prove
Because I would love that.
every single point near it. I would actually love to show you
Yeah.
all the beautiful work that I did. But I think the shift to me is it went from I need to prove that like each of these recommendations is right because I'm trying to get you to take the recommendation into something that looks more like I still need to bring the plan or show some kind of output because I need to show that I actually did my homework. You don't want to see my homework, but I do need to at least show that I did my homework and that I haven't simplified your life down to an index card because I actually skipped all the work and just gave you an index card. Like
Smart.
I can simplify your recommendations down to an index card because there's also like 193 pages of supplemental material behind the recommendations that got us here. The the other part though that I feel compelled to like acknowledge and recognize is I don't know how to separate the fact that I've now also been doing this 25 years.
Mm,
I have actual gray hair, a little bit more than I wanted, but such is life. I'm at a certain stage in career. I've got even a certain amount of credibility as an advisor for any client or prospect that I would be sitting across from, which means like there I can see that I probably went deeper than I needed to on a lot of the planning in the past, but 20 something me still like calls out and says, "Dude, I'm just not sure you could have gotten away with the lighter weight
mm,
thing
mm.
when you were younger." And yes, I like legitimately had clients that are like, "Oh, it's so cute. Our grandkids are your age." I'm like, "Awesome. Let's do some planning for them with your giant estate." Because my credibility is entirely undermined by the fact that your grandchildren who will inherit this multi-million dollar estate are older than me, the person who's making the plan for it. Right? Just like all those dynamics that were there that I like I feel like there was a part of getting pretty deep into a lot of the weeds to like prove the analysis and the plan that I'd done for the recommendations that I was making that is not how I would do it today, but I don't know that means I could have gotten away with doing something different in the past. I don't know if that's like me over reflecting,
No,
my
I
own
love that.
like young advisor experiences, but like I did work in a series of firms all the way through my 20s where our average client age was early 60s at one firm and early 70s at the other firm. So I was young. I mean, I was legit younger than their grandchildren in many cases. And that weighed really heavily on me from a credibility perspective.
There's no there unfortunately there's no way for us to prove this because I love that. I wondered that I've always wondered that myself too. Like what if this is just like a cute narrative that you get to tell people when you're 20 years in the industry that you should do it this way. So let's just try and separate it out real quick. I'm curious about this. Let's pretend like somebody came and coached you. You've been in the industry for 5 years. You're young. And let's say the you are completely your expertise is completely matched with the problem. So you're not in over your head here, right? So like you're
Well,
you're not
I
you're
may
not
or may not be in over my head. The question is whether the client believes
yeah,
I'm
that's why I want to try and that's don't
I'm
go
in
there
over
yet.
my head.
So you're not in over your head. You you understand that you're not in over your head. Somebody coaches you that you could say something like what you said, like you've printed out the 2 inches and you could say, I'm happy to review as much of this as you'd like. And maybe like, would it be this is what I used to say, would it be helpful for us to go through this 2 inch thick book, or would you like me to give you the simple answer on a yellow pad?
Look, I think
If
that's fair. I feel like, well, okay, I could have said it, but 100% of the answers were going to be like, yes, take us through it. So I was just
That's
shortcutting
my
myself
question. That's my
by
question.
getting
Let's try.
there.
I'm curious if this is, I'm curious because I do not know the answer. I think you're onto something. So I'm not trying to be trite here. I'm curious how much of that was your own, our own confidence and mindset. Because sitting right next door to us, there's a 55-year-old advisor who is saying, let me show you on a yellow pad.
Yeah.
And the clients are like, yep, yeah, yeah, got it, thanks, got it.
Yes. I
So is that
sat in
do
the
you
office with
think
some advisors that did that. I'm like, I spent like 4 hours on that analysis and you literally yellow padded it.
yeah, and do you think because
Little tear comes down my cheek.
every time I asked a client, like, would you like me to go through the 2 inch thick version or the version I can do on the yellow pad? They would say to me something silly like, is that a question? Like the yellow pad. But I was saying that when I was mid-career,
Well, and with the
30.
subset of clients, right? Again, there's some, I mean, we all have some version, I think, of a self-selection bias of who chooses us as well, right? Like
Yep.
my
All that.
hardcore engineer that wants to do every single page of the 100 something page plan with me, like may have just been more likely to pick me than you in the first place because they're not going to get to like go toe to toe on all 100 pages with you. And if they really want to do that and that's their fun thing, then
Yep. Yeah.
then I've
Yeah.
like inflicted that upon myself by showing up as a nerdy advisor that will do that.
Well,
I
okay, let's just try and get back to the point then. When is complexity necessary? When is simplicity the right tool? Like, how do we think about that?
I think it's a good question because I because to be fair, I was like reflect on that. Like it's I don't think it was ever literally about complexity, creating complexity, inflicting complexity. I mean, there is a segment of the industry that's like, the secret to sales is making their lives seem really, really complex and then coming with the simple answer and like decomplexifying
We're not talking about
the
that.
fears that you put on them. And like I guess that's a model that works. But like that wasn't my thing. That wasn't my angle around it. I come back to so there was a book years ago called the Trusted Advisor by Charlie Green and others. I forget who else. He had some co-authors. And like I still remember this really clearly. Their fundamental framework for trust was this like well, it was a math equation. So of course I liked it. Literally a mathematical equation. And the equation was credibility plus reliability plus intimacy. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by I wasn't kidding, Carl. It's beautiful. Divide by the whole thing. Divided by self orientation. And so the idea is look, you build trust on three foundations that you're credible, you know what you're talking about, that you're reliable, you do what you say you're going to do, and that you can create some intimacy, right? There's a relationship. And if you do those well, then things are good. But if you're super self-oriented and self-focused, you'll undermine all of that. So like, the divider part was if you're self-oriented instead of client-oriented, even if you're credible and reliable and have good relationship intimacy with clients, if you're very self-centered and it's all about you and your commissions and your comp and whatever else, this still isn't going to go well. So credibility, reliability, and intimacy, and you approach it with a client-centric fiduciary manner, this goes well. And the model had always stuck with me because like it resonated well. Like, okay, I need to be able to form a relationship with the clients. That's the intimacy factor. I have to do what I say I'm going to do. It's the reliability factor. And I have to be credible, right? Like they have to believe that when I give them the advice, I know what the blank I'm talking about. And to me, like it's the credibility part of this that like when I look back, I went through the full plan because I was younger than their grandchildren and fighting for credibility. And when I come to the table as an advisor with alphabet soup and 20 years of experience and gray hair, I'm not in a credibility fight anymore the way that I was. I still have to do what I say I'm going to do. I still have to have good relationship. I still have to be accurate and with the advice that I'm giving. But the credibility part, I think, really does show up differently. And so when I look back, like I wasn't trying to create complexity for the sake of complexity, but I didn't know how to show I was credible short of getting into the complex details and showing that I knew what the heck I was talking about and I'd really done the work.
Mm.
And I guess I'll own like and an unfortunate byproduct of that was a non-trivial number of clients where their eyes may have been starting to glaze over somewhere around the 90-minute mark and we weren't done with the meeting yet. I will own that that happened more often than I would probably care to admit reflecting back.
Yeah.
So like that's aside from the I'm trying to create complexity so I can sell you simplicity as a solution, right? That sort of sales approach. That's where the I guess there's two parts of where the complexity challenge comes for me. One is that like how do I earn my credibility to show that I really did what I really know what I'm doing when there aren't a lot of outward markers yet, like gray hair and years of experience and wrinkles and all that. And which maybe you'll want to talk about separately, like and sometimes it's actually really hard to get something down to its simplest form, right? There the I've always appreciated the famous Mark Twain saying, like, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long
Yeah.
one instead. And there
Yeah.
is like now, right? Like back then, it would be like, I made you a long financial plan because I'm trying to prove my credibility. Now I might still bring a relatively long financial plan to the meeting because I didn't have enough time to make an elegantly simple one because I have a lot of clients to meet with and and
Really,
go through.
that's
It takes a lot of time to like sit down and figure out how can I
yeah.
make this like beautifully simple.
Yeah, it's really true. I'm in the middle of final edits on my book, and it's a the book that comes out in October. It's 100 essays, 100 sketches, 100 essays, and I'm
So
going through ev
which took longer to write the 100 essays or to make the 100 sketches?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. But I'm going through every word right now and every line and I'm surprised at how much better it seems to get if I, but it that
Yeah,
editing process and that curation pro it requires you're going to leave out nuance. And when you leave out nuance and edge cases and you edit down, you're making some opinionated decisions. And sometimes you get those wrong. And in a client's plan, it's the same thing. You're like making,
you lost me at narrowing out edge cases. You can't leave them,
yeah.
Carl.
You're
That
making some
you have to get
decisions.
them in there.
You are the distiller, you are the curator. So here's what I would maybe leave with, which I think is really, I think what I would do if, I think the honest, I mean, I don't really know, but I think the honest kind of self-aware takeaway from this is to match the client situations be sure that you're competent for the advice you're giving. Like okay, that seems like a like if you're uncompetent, like if it's above your skill level, you just simply say I don't know and you get the help. We've done other episodes, right? So let's first make sure you're feel confident yourself that you're giving the advice. Then print out the 2-inch thick book. Drop it on the desk, like Michael talked about. Heft. Part of this is theater, and it's
Well, now
really
it's like a PDF, but yes,
yeah,
you can
but it's
see the page
important.
count on the PDF at the top.
But it's important. It's important because the client, remember, the client doesn't just need to be thoroughly diagnosed, accurately diagnosed. They don't just need that. They need a second thing. They need to feel that they were accurately diagnosed. Those are two separate things. And and you don't your skill level and reps at this are going to give you a sense of when somebody feels it and when they don't. But at first, just there's part of this that is the important theater makes it sound dismissive. I don't even mean that. I mean like it's a really important part of making sure clients feel thoroughly diagnosed. So you metaphorically or reality, you print out the I remember I used to do this with, I used a mutual fund. I had clients that had over $1 million, $2 million in one fund because it was a fund that owned 18,000 securities, right? Like, and the rebalancing and the cost, like it was so efficient to do it. I used to print out the whole prospectus and I would drop it from a foot above the desk to just sort of demonstrate, like, I know that looks like one thing. It's elegantly simple. Do you understand what's going on behind the hood? Same thing with the plan. So then I think you just experiment and learn to pay really close attention. How deep do they want to go?
Yeah.
Like, and just practice. Like, is this helpful? How much more how much detail would you like? What would be most helpful to you? Like, ask those kind of questions.
Yeah, I that to me, like I guess if I could go back to like me 20 something years ago to channel that, like I think that's the advice I would at least probably give young me in retrospect is so as I commented, right, like I sure I could have asked every single client, do you really want, would you like me to go through all this and show you the analysis that I did? I'm pretty sure their answer is going to be yes, because they're trying to just judge if the person younger than their grandchild actually knows what he's talking about or not. And I still should have asked. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking. There's no harm in asking to say like, hey, we've done a lot of analysis. I've got some recommendations to share with you, and like a lot of analysis at how we arrived at those recommendations. How much of this would you like me to go through with you?
Yeah,
And
I
just
love
let them say, if I'm fighting for credibility, they're gonna be like, all right, like, oh yeah, you can take me through your process. You can take me through your thing. I'm like, okay, all right, then I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and and do my big plan presentation. But
and
there would have been nothing wrong with giving them the chance, and I'm betting the answer would have changed at some point.
check back in as you go.
Yes.
Right? Like, hey, just want to check in here. Is there anything here? Like, I love the question of, hey, we just went through 15 minutes of stuff. What's the one thing that stuck out to you?
Mm,
Like, I love hearing people say it out loud because not only do I learn, but it reinforces something they learn. That's a Michael Bungay Stainer trick, suggestion, not trick. But so checking back in, like, hey, am I covering enough here for you? What else would you like to see? I sometimes would even ask, like, "Hey, are you a sort of bottom line kind of person? Would you like an executive's? Would you like me to review this entire thing, or would you like an executive summary?" Is a nice way to ask too.
yep.
Instead of saying like yellow pad, sometimes that feels a little like like casual. But executive summary has a nice ring to it. That's what an executive would have. Like, would
Yeah.
you like to review the whole thing, or would you like me to review the executive summary? Or you can make an assumption. This is another good way to do it. Hey, I've got the whole document here and I would be thrilled to review the whole thing. Why don't we start with the executive summary and you can tell me where you'd like me to go deeper? Like, I like that too.
Yeah. And again, what strikes me about asking, as I look back in retrospect, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong and totally off base and still like over projecting my young advisor fears, but like I'm really pretty sure everyone back then was going to say yes, take me through it because they're still trying to judge whether I really know what I'm talking about. But I'm also quite certain there's a point that would have changed. And
Yeah,
they would have started I would have started hearing more clients say like, "Oh, it looks like you did your work. Like just break me out, just give me the high level summary.
yeah,
Like what should we do?" And I'm pretty sure I would have gotten that change sooner than when I actually started changing
yeah, yeah.
how I was
I
showing up.
I think this conversation has taught me that I'm going to make that my new default. My new default assumption is that actually there is something about being a younger advisor that means you're probably going to need to prove a little bit more than you normally do. I actually don't know that I believed that before this conversation. I probably was saying it's all in your head, it's all in your head, it's all in your head. I've adjusted my assumptions, and I think the new default assumption for me is, yeah, you know what, when you're younger, you probably do need to do more of that. And great news.
Yeah.
It's good practice. It's good
Yes, it is.
reps.
I
It's good learning, and then sort of start paying attention. And you should still ask the same questions.
what yeah, like and don't do more of it than you need to. One of my early mentors would very often say or remind me because I would like really get going on some of these plans. Don't talk past the sale.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a sales context. I like we were in
Yeah.
the sale wasn't selling a product at that firm. We were an RA, but like it was selling the client on the recommendation. And he would make the comments from time to time. It's like they were already convinced to do it like 15 minutes ago, and you're still going, dude. So, you can bring some of that, and I like both how you frame it, Carl. Like, would you like me to review this entire thing? Would you like the executive summary? And hey, we just went through 15 minutes of stuff. What's the one thing that stuck out for you? Hey, we just went through 50 minutes of stuff. Do you want to keep going at this level of depth, or do you want me to summarize some of the other sections and just like give clients the chance to make that call? And then you'll really find out how deep you need to be on these. Because my default was like, I got my routine. I know how I do my 100-page book. And they were long meetings. And I probably often talked past the sale because I'd actually made the credibility case I was trying to make, and I was still going.
I totally agree. And I think if you start asking those questions early on, like the very simple ones of like, would it be helpful to go through the executive summary and then tell me where you want to go deeper? You'll start noticing patterns. I would very much treat this like, Uh, the analogy is kind of funny, but I'd treat this like the experience of prompt engineering with AI. Like, let's
Yep.
pay attention to what produces what result, and what are we learning, and what do we like pretend. Or another way to think of it, I used to say this all the time, like pretend like you're a drama student,
Yeah.
or pretend like you're a professional play, like you're an actor. Pay attention,
Yeah.
notice the scripts, get training, practice. This is the most valuable. Other than your technical skill, arguably. Sorry, Michael. Arguably more than your technical skill, because without it, you're not going to get to do your technical skill.
I'll allow it. Valid point.
Okay, so let's just say they're equally as important. So pay attention as early as you can. Realize that, yeah, you're going to need to get the reps in, ask the questions, pay attention, see what you learn. And I think you're going to find over time, I bet you find a very similar trajectory, which is, man, it's so interesting. People are starting to trust me now.
Yeah. Like I actually don't have to prove myself that much anymore. How about that?
Yeah, love that.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl.
Okay, Michael, cheers.
Cheers.